Jake Morrison sat at his desk, staring at the communication screen that had been silent for 3 hours. The coffee in his cup had gone cold, but he barely noticed. As the colony administrator of New Haven, he was used to handling problems. Farm equipment breakdowns, supply shortages, the occasional dispute between settlers. But this was different. This was the kind of silence that made his stomach twist with worry. The first message had come from the Riverside colony 2 systems away. It was brief and filled with static. Something about creatures attacking from the sky. Then the transmission cut out completely. An hour later, the same thing happened with Golden Fields colony. Then Harmony Station went dark, without even sending a distress call. 3 colonies, 3 different systems, all gone quiet within 6 hours. Jake pressed the communication button again. "Lisa, can you come to my office? Bring whatever data you have on those satellite feeds." Dr. Lisa Grant arrived 10 minutes later carrying a data pad and wearing the worried expression that had become common around the colony in the past few days. She was New Haven's only xenobiologist, which made her the closest thing they had to an expert on alien life forms. "The footage is disturbing," she said without waiting for Jake to ask. "I managed to clean up some of the images before the satellites went offline." She placed the data pad on Jake's desk and activated the holographic display. The image that appeared made Jake's blood run cold. The creature looked like a giant spider, but wrong in every possible way. Its body was covered in what looked like black crystal, and it moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for something so large. "How big is that thing?" Jake asked. "Based on the scale references, I estimate 12 feet tall, maybe more." Lisa touched the pad, and the image rotated. "Look at the limbs. They're not just legs. Each one ends in what appears to be a razor-sharp cutting tool. And here." She pointed to the creature's head. "Multiple eyes in this opening that I believe is used to spit some kind of acid." Jake watched as the recording showed the creature tearing through a defensive barrier like it was made of paper. The metal glowed and bubbled where the creature touched it. "What are we dealing with, Lisa? I've never seen anything like it in any of the galactic databases, but based on the attack patterns and the way they move together, I think these are bioengineered weapons, war beasts." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. War beasts were something you heard about in history classes, used by the great galactic empires to conquer entire star systems. But those were ancient stories. The Galactic Council had banned biological warfare centuries ago. Who would break the ban? Jake asked. Before Lisa could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the administrative building. The emergency communication system activated, and Captain Rick Torres's voice filled the room. "All personnel, this is not a drill. We have incoming objects from orbit. Multiple contacts, moving fast. All civilians report to designated bunkers immediately." Jake and Lisa ran to the observation deck. In the distance, they could see streaks of light falling from the sky like deadly rain. But these weren't meteors or missiles. As the objects got closer, Jake could see they were organic, pulsing with a sickly green light. "Drop pods," Lisa whispered. "They're biological drop pods." The first pod hit the ground near the farming district with a wet, squelching sound. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pod split open like a flower, revealing the nightmare inside. The creature that emerged was even more terrifying in person than in the satellite footage. It stood on 6 legs, each one ending in a blade that could cut through steel. Its crystalline armor reflected the morning sun, creating rainbow patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't attached to something so deadly. More pods were landing every few seconds. Jake counted at least 20, maybe more, each one releasing another monster into his peaceful colony. "We need to evacuate everyone to the central bunker," Jake said. But even as he spoke, he knew it might be too late. The first creature had already reached the farming district. Jake watched through binoculars as it approached a maintenance shed where 2 workers were trying to hide. The creature seemed to sense them through the walls. It raised one of its blade arms and brought it down. The entire shed collapsed in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. The workers ran, but the creature was faster. It opened its mouth and spat a stream of green liquid. Where the acid hit the ground, the grass died instantly. One drop caught the first worker on the shoulder. His scream carried across the distance and Jake had to look away. The defense turrets. Rick's voice came through the communicator. They're not working. The creature's armor is too strong. Jake made a decision that would have gotten him court-martialed if the Galactic Council found out. He activated his personal communicator and set it to a frequency that officially didn't exist. This is Colony Administrator Jake Morrison of New Haven, Authorization Code 77 Alpha Delta. Emergency Protocol 12 is in effect. Repeat, Protocol 12 is in effect. Lisa stared at him. Jake, what are you doing? Protocol 12 is restricted. It's banned by the Council. The Council isn't here, Jake replied grimly. And if we don't do something, there won't be anyone left to punish. The response came immediately. A voice calm and professional with just a hint of an accent that Jake couldn't place. Administrator Morrison, this is Control. We confirm Protocol 12 activation. Package is being prepared for immediate deployment. Maintain defensive positions for 72 hours. 72 hours? Jake looked out at the creatures systematically destroying his colony. We might not have 72 minutes. Understood. Emergency deployment authorized. Package will arrive in 60 hours. Good luck, Administrator. The communication ended, leaving Jake and Lisa alone with the sound of destruction growing closer. What did you just do? Lisa asked. Jake watched another creature tear through the colony's main power station. The lights flickered and went out, across half the settlement. I called for help, the kind of help the galaxy hoped it would never need again. Outside, the war beasts continued their systematic destruction of everything Jake had spent 5 years building. But somewhere in the back of his mind, he felt a small spark of hope. Earth had learned hard lessons about survival in a dangerous galaxy. And sometimes, the only way to fight monsters was with monsters of your own. The question was whether anyone would survive long enough to see what humanity had been hiding in the dark corners of their home system. 3 weeks before the attack on New Haven, War Master Zethrak stood in the command center of his flagship. The massive insectoid alien towered over his crew, his forearms moving in quick gestures as he reviewed the holographic displays floating around him. The ship, called Sovereign's Claw, was the pride of the Hegemony Empire. Its biometal hull pulsed with a life of its own, and every surface seemed to breathe. Zethrak's compound eyes studied the tactical map showing human space. Dozens of small colonies scattered across the outer rim like seeds waiting to be crushed. The humans had been expanding too quickly, claiming worlds that the Hegemony considered their territory. It was time to teach them their place. Status report. Zethrak clicked in his native language, the sounds resembling breaking glass. Sub-Commander Krex, a smaller version of Zethrak with only 2 arms, scuttled forward. The breeding chambers are at full capacity, War Master. We have 300 hunters ready for deployment. Another 200 will be ready within the cycle. Zethrak made a pleased chirping sound. The hunters were his pride and joy. Each one cost more resources than a small warship, but they were worth every credit. Over the past 50 years, the Hegemony had used them to conquer 47 different species. No defense had ever stopped them. The hunters were perfect killing machines. Bred from the genetic material of the most dangerous predators the Hegemony had encountered, then enhanced with bioengineering that took centuries to perfect. They could survive in any environment, adapt to any threat, and they never stopped hunting until their prey was dead. What do our intelligence reports say about human defenses? Zethrak asked. Krex activated another display. Minimal, War Master. They rely heavily on energy shields and projectile weapons. Their armor is made of simple metals and composites. Our hunters' claws will cut through them like cutting through water. Zethrak studied the human settlements. They looked so peaceful, so vulnerable. The humans had built their colonies like they expected to live in peace forever. Gardens and farms surrounded every settlement. Children played in open spaces. It would almost be sad to destroy such innocence. Almost. They have no war beasts of their own? Zethrak asked. None that we have detected. The humans seem to prefer mechanical weapons, They build machines to fight their battles instead of creating life. Krex's tone suggested disgust. They are weak, War Master. This will be an easy conquest. The command center doors opened with a wet sliding sound, and two figures entered. One was human. The other was Zethrak's own intelligence officer. The Tacho, human, wore the blue uniform of a diplomatic vessel, and she walked with the confident stride of someone used to negotiating with aliens. War Master Zethrak, the human said, bowing slightly. I am Commander Amy Parker of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. I come with a final offer for peace. Zethrak looked down at the small human. She barely reached his lower shoulder, and her soft pink skin looked fragile compared to his chitinous armor. How could such weak creatures think they could negotiate with the hegemony? Speak your words, human, Zethrak said in heavily accented Standard Galactic. But know that the hegemony has already decided your fate. Amy Parker stepped forward, showing no fear despite being surrounded by creatures that could tear her apart with their bare claws. The human colonies you plan to attack are under Earth's protection. If you proceed with this invasion, Earth will respond with measures you may not expect. Zethrak's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. What measures? Your energy weapons? Your metal ships? We have studied your defenses. Human. They are adequate for pirates and raiders, but we are the hegemony. We have conquered races far more advanced than yours. I'm not talking about conventional defenses, Amy said quietly. Earth has other capabilities we prefer not to use. Threats? Zethrak reared up to his full height, intimidating most species into submission. But the human didn't. Back down. You dare threaten the hegemony? I'm trying to prevent a conflict that will cost both our peoples dearly, Amy replied. Earth doesn't want war, but we will defend our colonies. I'm asking you to reconsider. Zethrak turned to Sub-Commander. Krex, show her. Krex activated a new display. The hologram showed one of their hunters in a testing chamber. The creature faced a series of mechanical targets designed to simulate different types of defenses. Energy shields, armor plating, defensive, drones. The hunter destroyed them all within minutes, moving with fluid grace and deadly precision. This is what awaits your colonies, Zethrak said. Our hunters have never failed. They have destroyed civilizations that had weapons you cannot imagine. What makes you think your people can survive what others could not? Amy watched the display with professional interest, showing no emotion as the hunter demonstrated its killing abilities. When the demonstration ended, she looked up at Zethrak. War Master, you're making a mistake. Humans may look weak to you, but we've survived on a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to adapt. We learned to fight back. And we learned to make allies of the things that hunted us. More threats disguised as warnings. Zethrak dismissed. Your time is finished, human. Return to your ship and tell your leaders that the hegemony claims these worlds. Any who resist will feed our hunters. Amy Parker nodded slowly. I'll deliver your message, War Master. But I want you to remember this conversation when your hunters start dying. Remember that I tried to warn you. She turned and walked out of the command center, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Zethrak watched her go, then turned back to his displays. Arrogant creature, he muttered. Ready the first wave. We begin with the outer colonies. 50 hunters should be more than enough. Yes, War Master, Krex replied. Which colonies should we target first? Zethrak studied the map, then pointed to 3 settlements. These: Riverside, Golden Fields, and Harmony Station. Small populations, minimal defenses. Perfect testing grounds for our new breeding generation. Over. The next few hours, the hegemony fleet prepared for war. In the breeding chambers, the hunters stirred restlessly in their containment pods, sensing the approaching hunt. These creatures had been bred for one purpose: to kill. They had never known defeat because they had never faced an enemy that understood them. The first wave launched exactly 12 hours after Amy Parker's ship left the hegemony fleet. 50 transport vessels, each carrying multiple hunters, set course for human space. Zethrak watched them go with satisfaction. In 3 days, the outer colonies would be smoking ruins. In a week, the humans would surrender their remaining settlements. In a month, this entire region would belong to the hegemony, and the humans would be remembered only as another species that couldn't adapt fast enough to survive. Zethrak had no way of knowing that at that very moment, deep in Earth's solar system, ancient protocols were being activated. Creatures that had been sleeping in frozen storage were being awakened. And somewhere in the dark reaches of space, humanity's true children were stirring. The hegemony thought they understood predators. They were about to discover they had never met one that learned from its mistakes. Dr. Kevin Walsh stood in the elevator as it descended through 3 miles of solid ice. The numbers on the display kept climbing down, past levels that didn't exist on any official record. Past the civilian research stations, past the military, bases, down to the place where humanity kept its darkest secrets. The Antarctic Experimental Weapons Facility had been built in absolute secrecy 50 years ago, after humanity's first contact with hostile alien life. The world above thought Earth's military was focused on spaceships and energy weapons. They had no idea what was really being developed in the frozen depths below. The elevator stopped with a soft chime, and Kevin stepped out into a corridor that looked nothing like the ice world above. The walls were smooth metal, glowing with soft blue light. The air was warm and humid, carefully controlled to maintain the perfect environment for what lived here. Kevin's assistant, Dr. Nancy Foster, was waiting for him with a data pad and a worried expression. She had been part of the project since the beginning, one of the few people who truly understood what they had created. The message from New Haven came through 20 minutes ago, she said as they walked. Protocol 12 has been activated. The colony administrator is requesting immediate deployment. Kevin nodded grimly. Protocol 12 was the code that meant conventional defenses had failed. It meant civilians were dying while alien war beasts hunted them through their homes. It meant humanity had no choice but to reveal what they had been hiding. How long until Colonel Adams has the transport ready? Kevin asked. 2 hours for full deployment, but Kevin, are you sure about this? Once we deploy them, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what we've been doing. Kevin stopped walking and looked at Nancy. They had worked together for 15 years, developing weapons that could protect humanity from the horrors lurking in the dark between stars. They had both hoped this day would never come. The hegemony broke the biological warfare ban first, Kevin said quietly. They started this. We're just going to finish it. They reached the main observation deck, and Kevin pressed his palm against the security scanner. Heavy doors slid open, revealing the sight that still took his breath away even after all these years. The containment facility stretched out below them like a vast underground city. Hundreds of specialized chambers lined the walls, each one designed to house a different type of creature. But these weren't alien war beasts captured from conquered worlds. These were Earth's children, shaped by human hands into something the galaxy had never seen. Show me Alpha 7, Kevin said. Nancy activated the observation systems and the lights in one chamber brightened. Inside, a creature that had once been a Siberian tiger paced restlessly, but calling it a tiger now would be like calling a starship a paper airplane. Alpha 7 stood 8 feet tall at the shoulder, its muscles rippling under fur that seemed to shift and change color with the light. Its bones had been reinforced with alien metals recovered from crashed ships. Its claws could cut through starship armor, and its eyes showed an intelligence that was purely human. Neural integration is at 95%, Nancy reported. Alpha 7 can understand and follow complex battle strategies. It can operate simple tools, coordinate with teammates, and adapt to new situations faster than most trained soldiers. Kevin watched as Alpha 7 noticed them watching. The creature looked up at the observation window and nodded slightly. It was a small gesture, but it sent chills down Kevin's spine every time. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a thinking, feeling being that chose to fight for humanity. How many are ready for deployment? Kevin asked. 13 in Alpha 7's pack. Another 30 in the second wave if needed. The third generation is still in development, but they won't be ready for another year. Kevin studied the readout on Alpha 7's capabilities. adaptive camouflage that could make it nearly invisible, reinforced skeleton that could survive falls from orbit, enhanced muscle density that gave it the strength of a small vehicle, and most importantly, a brain that had been enhanced with human genetic material to give it tactical thinking abilities. The doors behind them opened and Colonel Beth Adams entered the observation deck. She was a small woman with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. She had been in charge of the facility's security since it was built, and she knew every creature in the containment area by name. "Dr. Walsh, we have authorization for emergency deployment," she said, holding up a communication device. "The order comes directly from Earth Command." Kevin took the device and read the message. It was brief and to the point. New Haven was under attack by unknown alien war beasts. Conventional defenses had failed. Protocol 12 was authorized. Deploy immediately. "How long to reach New Haven?" Kevin asked. 18 hours in the Night Hunter, Beth replied. "But that's cutting it close. The colony might not survive that long." Kevin looked down at Alpha 7 again. The creature was no longer pacing. It was sitting perfectly still, as if it sensed that something important was happening. Its enhanced hearing could probably pick up their conversation through the reinforced walls. "What about the other colonies under attack?" Kevin asked. "Riverside and Golden Fields went silent 12 hours ago. Harmony Station hasn't responded to communications since yesterday. New Haven is the only one still transmitting." Kevin felt a cold anger building in his chest. The hegemony had killed thousands of innocent colonists with their war beasts. They thought they could terrorize humanity into submission by showing off their superior biological weapons. They had no idea what they had just awakened. "Begin deployment. Procedures," Kevin ordered. "Full pack deployment, Alpha 7 and 12 support units." Beth nodded and activated her communicator. "All deployment teams to stations. Code red authorization. Prepare for immediate launch." Throughout the facility, alarms began to sound. Not the harsh warning alarms of an emergency, but the low, rhythmic tones that meant humanity's guardians were going to war. In their containment chambers, 13 creatures that had been bred for this moment began to stir. Kevin watched as Alpha 7 stood and moved to the center of its chamber. The creature knew. Somehow it always knew when it was time to hunt. "Doctor, are you sure about this?" Nancy asked one more time. "Once the galaxy sees what we've created, everything changes. They'll want to study them, copy them, or destroy them." Kevin looked at the tactical display showing New Haven's desperate situation. Jake Morrison and his colonists were fighting for their lives against creatures designed to be unstoppable. But the hegemony had made one critical mistake. They had assumed that humanity would fight like every other species they had conquered. "The galaxy is going to learn something today," Kevin said quietly. "They're going to learn that you don't attack Earth's children and expect to survive. The hegemony wanted to show us their war beasts. Now they're going to meet ours." In the containment chamber below, Alpha 7 raised its head and let out a sound that was part roar, part howl, and something entirely new. It was the sound of Earth's apex predator preparing to defend its territory, and for the first time in the SCI facility's history, that territory included the stars themselves. The transport Night Hunter was already being loaded with specialized deployment pods. In less than 2 hours, the galaxy would discover that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their ships. It was their ability to take nature's perfect killing machines and make them even more perfect. Captain Steve Mitchell gripped the controls of the Night Hunter as the ship dropped out of hyperspace near New Haven. Through the viewport, he could see the colony burning. Smoke rose from a dozen different locations, and the defensive grid was completely dark. The hegemony's war beasts had done their work well. "How long do we have?" Steve asked over the ship's communication system. Dr. Kevin Walsh's voice came through the speakers from the cargo bay. "Colony sensors show life signs in the central bunker complex. Maybe 200 survivors. But the alien creatures are getting closer to their position." Steve checked his instruments. The Night Hunter was designed for stealth operations, invisible to most scanning systems. But once they deployed their cargo, there would be no hiding what humanity had brought to this fight. "Deployment in 30 seconds, he announced. In the cargo bay, 13 specialized pods were lined up like metal eggs. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering. designed to protect its occupant during orbital insertion while providing tactical information about the battlefield below. Unlike the crude biological pods the hegemony used, these were smart weapons that could think and adapt. Alpha 7 lay curled inside the lead pod, its enhanced senses monitoring the approach to the planet's surface. The creature's neural implants were receiving real-time data about enemy positions, terrain features, and the location of human survivors. By the time the pod hit the ground, Alpha 7 would have a complete understanding of the battlefield. "Deploying now," Steve announced. The Y pods launched in perfect sequence, dropping toward the planet like falling stars. But these stars carried death for humanity's enemies. Down in the bunker complex, Dr. Lisa Grant watched the deployment through the colony's remaining security cameras. Jake Morrison stood beside her, both of them holding their breath as the pods streaked across the sky. "What are those things?" Lisa whispered. Jake checked his communication device. The message from Earth Command was brief. "Cavalry en route, maintain position, do not interfere with friendly units." "I think we're about to find out," Jake replied. The first pod landed in a clearing 200 meters from the bunker complex. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pod split open with a soft hiss, releasing a cloud of vapor that quickly cleared to reveal the creature inside. Lisa's mouth fell open. Through the security camera, she could see a massive feline form emerging from the pod. But this wasn't any Earth animal she recognized. It was huge, easily twice the size of any big cat she had ever seen. Its fur seemed to shift and change color, blending with the shadows around it. "That's impossible," she breathed. "That's clearly based on Earth genetics, but the modifications..." The creature that would later be known as Alpha 7 stood and stretched, testing its limbs after the long journey. Its eyes swept the area, taking in every detail. Then it looked directly at the security camera and nodded once, as if acknowledging the humans watching. The other 12 pods landed in a perfect circle around the colony perimeter. Each one released a similar creature, though no two were exactly alike. Some were based on wolves, others on bears or great cats. All of them shared the same enhanced intelligence and tactical awareness. Alpha 7 raised its head and made a sound that was part growl, part electronic signal. The other creatures responded immediately, moving to predetermined positions with military precision. This wasn't a pack of wild animals. This was a coordinated military unit. The first hegemony hunter appeared at the edge of the colony's main square, its crystalline armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. The alien creature moved with confidence, having spent the last 3 days systematically destroying everything in its path. It had no reason to expect any real resistance. Alpha 7 watched the hunter from the shadows, its adaptive camouflage making it nearly invisible. The creature's enhanced brain analyzed the enemy's movement patterns, armor composition, and likely weaknesses. Within seconds, it had developed a complete battle plan. The hunter approached the bunker complex, following the scent of the humans hiding inside. Its acid-spitting mouth opened, preparing to dissolve the armored doors, but Alpha 7 was already moving. The attack came so fast that the security cameras almost missed it. Alpha 7 leaped from concealment, its reinforced claws extended. But instead of attacking the hunter directly, it struck the ground beside the creature, using its claws to dig into the soft earth. The hunter spun around, confused. It had been expecting human weapons, energy blasts, or projectiles. It wasn't prepared for something that used the environment as a weapon. Alpha 7 had torn up a section of the ground, creating loose dirt and debris. When the hunter tried to spit acid, the cloud of dust interfered with its aim. The creature's enhanced eyes could see through the dust, but the hunter's alien senses were confused. That moment of confusion was all Alpha 7 needed. It struck from the side, its claws finding the gaps between the hunter's armor plates. The alien creature let out a shriek of pain and rage, swiping at its attacker with its blade arms. But Alpha 7 was no longer there. The Earth creature had rolled away, using tactics that no hegemony war beast had ever encountered. The hunter was built for direct confrontation, expecting its enemies to face it head-on like every other species it had fought. From the bunker, Jake and Lisa watched in amazement as the battle continued. The hunter was clearly stronger and more heavily armored than Alpha 7, but it couldn't land a hit. The Earth creature moved like liquid shadow, striking and retreating, wearing down its opponent with dozens of small wounds. It's using pack tactics, Lisa realized. Look at the positioning. She was right. While Alpha 7 kept the hunter distracted, two other creatures had moved into position. One was a wolf-based unit that had circled behind the hunter. The other was a bear hybrid that had climbed onto the roof of a nearby building. The coordinated attack came from three directions at once. The wolf unit struck the hunter's legs, trying to bring it down. The bear hybrid dropped from above, its massive weight crushing the alien creature to the ground. And Alpha 7 went for the killing blow, its claws finding the hunter's vulnerable neck area. The hegemony war beast, which had never known defeat, died within 30 seconds of the coordinated assault. But the Earth creatures weren't finished. Across the colony, similar battles were taking place as the human war beasts systematically hunted down the remaining hunters. Each engagement followed the same pattern: careful observation, tactical planning, and coordinated execution. In orbit, above New Haven, War Master Zethrak watched the battle through his ship's sensors. What he saw made no sense. His perfect hunters, the creatures that had conquered dozens of worlds, were being destroyed by unknown enemies. What are those things? He demanded. Sub-Commander Krex studied the sensor readings. They appear to be biological, War Master, but their tactical abilities are beyond anything we've encountered. Zethrak's mandibles clicked with rage. Impossible. No species has war beasts superior to ours. On the planet's surface, Alpha 7 stood over the body of its defeated enemy. The creature's enhanced senses could detect the fear in the alien ship above. It raised its head and let out a sound that was part victory roar, part challenge. The message was clear. Earth's children had come to play, and they played by rules the hegemony had never learned. In the bunker, Jake received a communication from the Night Hunter. Colony secured. Hostile forces eliminated. Evacuation and medical teams en route. Jake looked at Lisa, both of them still trying to process what they had witnessed. Humanity had war beasts that could outfight the hegemony's supposedly invincible hunters, and they had kept them secret until now. What have we become? Lisa whispered. Outside, Alpha 7 and its pack were already preparing for the next phase of the battle. The hegemony had wanted to teach humanity about fear. Now it was their turn to learn. Admiral Tom Bradley sat in his command chair aboard the Earth Defense Fleet flagship Defender, watching the communication displays light up like a holiday celebration. Messages were pouring in from across the galaxy. Surrender requests, trade, offers, demands for information, and threats. All because of what happened at New Haven. The battle footage had spread through galactic networks faster than anyone expected. Every major civilization had seen the recordings of Earth's war beasts systematically destroying the hegemony's supposedly invincible hunters. The galaxy was taking notice of humanity in a way they never had before. Status report, Tom ordered. Commander. Bill Hayes, his tactical officer, pulled up the latest intelligence summaries. 17 hegemony worlds have requested immediate peace negotiations. War Master Zethrak's fleet is in full retreat, and we're getting communication requests from 43 different species who want to know more about our defensive capabilities. Tom nodded grimly. This was exactly what Earth Command had hoped to avoid. For 50 years, humanity had kept their biological weapons program secret, hoping they would never need to use it. Now that secret was out, and every civilization in the galaxy wanted to know what else Earth was hiding. What about the other colonies? Tom asked. Rescue teams reached Riverside and Golden Field 6 hours ago. No survivors. Harmony Station is completely destroyed. New Haven was the only colony we saved. Tom felt the weight of those losses. Thousands of innocent people dead because the hegemony wanted to flex their military strength. But at least their sacrifice hadn't been meaningless. The galaxy now knew that attacking human colonies came with a price. On New Haven, Jake Morrison stood in the colony's medical center, watching Dr. Lisa Grant examine one of the creatures that had saved them. Alpha 7 lay on a specially reinforced examination table, allowing the xenobiologist to study its enhancements. The creature's intelligence was obvious in its eyes as it watched her work. "The genetic modifications are incredible," Lisa said, recording her observations. "This started as a Siberian tiger, but the changes go far beyond simple size enhancement. The bone structure has been completely redesigned using alien metallurgy. The muscle fibers are 3 times denser than any natural Earth predator. And the neural enhancements." She paused, looking directly into Alpha 7's eyes. The creature tilted its head slightly as if understanding her words. "It's not just intelligent," she continued. "It's empathetic. It understands that we're not enemies. It chose to protect us." Jake watched through the window as the other Earth creatures patrolled the colony perimeter. They moved with purpose, checking defensive positions and ensuring no hegemony forces had been left behind. But they also showed restraint. When curious colonists approached, the creatures remained calm and unthreatening. "They're not just weapons," Jake realized. "They're guardians." Across the galaxy, the political implications of humanity's victory were creating chaos in government chambers and military headquarters. In the Galactic Council chambers on Central Prime, emergency sessions had been called to discuss the Earth situation. Ambassador Carol White, humanity's representative to the Council, found herself at the center of intense questioning from dozens of different species. The Council chambers, usually a place of careful diplomacy, buzzed with nervous energy. "Ambassador White," clicked the Krillian representative, its translator making its words sound mechanical. "Your species has violated the biological warfare accords. These creatures you deployed are clearly weapons of mass destruction." Carol stood calmly at the speaker's podium, her years of diplomatic training keeping her voice steady. "The biological warfare accords were violated first when the hegemony deployed their hunters against civilian colonies. Earth's response was purely defensive." The Altarian delegate, a tall humanoid with blue skin, leaned forward. "Defensive or not, your war beasts demonstrated capabilities far beyond anything we believed Earth possessed. How long have you been developing these creatures?" "Earth has maintained defensive preparations appropriate to the threats we face," Carol replied carefully. "We hope never to use them. The hegemony's unprovoked attacks forced our hand." But the real shock came when War Master Zethrak himself appeared via hologram. The proud insectoid commander looked diminished, his usual arrogance replaced by something that might have been fear. "I formally request the Galactic Council's protection," Zethrak announced, his words causing stunned silence throughout the chamber. "The human war beasts are beyond our ability to counter. We withdraw all claims to human territory and seek immediate peace negotiations." The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. The hegemony, one of the galaxy's most feared military powers, was publicly surrendering to humanity. Species that had trembled before hegemony war fleets were now looking at Earth with new respect and considerable wariness. Back on Earth, Dr. Kevin Walsh stood in the Antarctic facility, reviewing deployment, reports with Dr. Nancy Foster. The mission had been a complete success from a tactical standpoint, but Kevin knew the real challenges were just beginning. "Intelligence reports indicate that 12 different civilizations are trying to obtain samples of our creatures," Nancy said, reading from her datapad. "The Zorblaxians are offering technology exchanges. The Christek Collective wants to hire our creatures as mercenaries. And the Vegan Empire is demanding we turn over all biological weapons to galactic authorities." Kevin looked down at the containment levels below, where dozens of other enhanced creatures waited in their chambers. Alpha 7's pack was just the beginning. Humanity had been preparing for galactic-level threats for half a century, and they had built an entire arsenal of biological guardians. "What's the status on the new breeding programs?" Kevin asked. "Generation 4 is showing remarkable progress. We've successfully integrated dolphin intelligence patterns with enhanced physical capabilities. And the Project Phoenix specimens are exceeding all expectations." Kevin nodded. The galaxy thought they had seen humanity's full capabilities at New Haven. They had no idea that Alpha 7's pack represented less than 5% of Earth's biological defense forces. On the Night Hunter, Captain Steve Mitchell prepared for the journey back to Earth. In the cargo bay, Alpha 7 and its pack rested in specialized transport containers. The creatures showed no signs of stress or aggression after their first combat deployment. If anything, they seemed satisfied, like soldiers who had completed a successful mission. Steve had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like these creatures. They fought with the ferocity of Earth's apex predators, but they also showed judgment, restraint, and loyalty that went beyond simple programming. As the ship entered hyperspace, Steve reflected on what the galaxy would look like now. For the first time since humanity had ventured into space, they were no longer seen as the weak newcomers. They were a force to be respected, feared, and possibly avoided. The hegemony had wanted to teach humanity about their place in the galactic order. Instead, they had learned that some lessons come with teeth and claws attached, and sometimes the student becomes the teacher. 3 months later, no major power had attacked a human colony. Several species had requested defensive alliances with Earth, and in the deepest levels of the Antarctic facility, new generations of Earth's guardians were being born, each one more capable than the last. The galaxy had wanted to see humanity's war beasts. Now they understood that the scariest thing about Earth's creatures wasn't their strength or their weapons. It was their restraint, because creatures that chose when to kill were far more dangerous than ones that simply killed everything they met. Humanity had finally found their place among the stars, and that place was wherever they chose to stand.